Hey dudes, it's Larold, and we've got a big warrior update for you here today. We've been playing around with a bunch of different options to increase the build's damage and clear speed without losing too much tankiness, and we're happy to report that it is obliterating everything in the game. This build has killed every pinnacle boss on max difficulty with ease. It cleared rank 3 Simulacrum easier than it did on difficulty 1, to be honest. So the build's dealing about double the damage it was in the last update, and that's what this video is going to be about. We're going to walk through a bunch of different ways to increase your damage and clear speed. They're going to hit a wide range of different price points, and you can use some or all of them. It's really up to you. So let's get into it, but first be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and join our Discord as well. So we've already answered a lot of commonly asked questions in our last video, such as how we break armor on Warrior and how we get the cool green spikes on all of our slams, but we have a couple of new common questions to hit on in this video, so let's go ahead and start with those. So the first would be the constricting command, Viper Cap. The most common question is just like, have you tried it? Is it any good? And it sort of is and sort of isn't. It is a relatively cheap chase unique. What it does is it just makes it so that you have to have fewer enemies near to you to be surrounded. Surrounded means you have 5 enemies within at least 3 meters. You can get all the way up to 5 fewer, so you just are permanently surrounded, which is cool. There are some pretty good bonuses, some pretty good supports for Surrounded in the tree, including this wheel of bonuses here: Frantic Fighter, Tactical Retreat, and Favorable Odds. These are all very powerful, and they're right in range of a nice Time Lost Ruby setup here, so you can get whatever, some good bonuses out of it. So having played around with this, it is okay. The issue with it is you lose a lot of armor. It is an evasion-based helm. You lose a lot of resistances. You lose a lot of stat budget, and so you have to compensate for that elsewhere. Like, this character's obviously not set up to really take full advantage of that. As you can see, we go from, what do we have, 23,300 armor down to 17,000 armor by swapping that in. Now, that's obviously not taking advantage of these bonuses, and there are also some other support gems that definitely are worth pointing out here that really, like, fix one of the more annoying issues with the build. And that would be mana. If we open up the support gem tab here and show off Defy, if you are surrounded, then attack damage is lucky, which is really, really good in conjunction with Rizlatha's Coil. And then also it makes it so that insufficient mana just doesn't prevent you from using the supported skills. This is really good. Now, this does mean that you would have to put Life Tap or something on your Infernal Cry so that you'll be able to use it even if your mana is low, because Defy can only be used on attack skills, but you could use that on Defy, that is, on every single other attack skill in your entire skill setup, and that basically fixes mana. You don't have to spend life, you don't have to use blood magic, so that frees up a couple of points. You also don't have this huge life cost on all your skills, which is nice, right? It is a little annoying to spend 300, 400 life on some of these attacks. So we have thrown that into the PoB. It's in there, although it is the wrong version of it. It's the old version of it, so let's just go ahead and copy this one in. All right, this one isn't copying it correctly either. That's fine. Ultimately, you can use Constricting Command. It is very strong, but it does come with the downside of losing a lot of armor, and then you kind of have to fix some stats elsewhere. All right, the next question is Giant's Blood. Why aren't you using it? Should we? So, Giant's Blood it's okay. It has some downsides that are, like, pretty severe. First off, it requires a massive increase in the amount of strength that you have. This character only has, like, 195 strength. Clearly less than 200, so that would require, like, a significant point investment, coming into beef, probably coming over and taking brute strength. That would obviously require sacrificing points elsewhere. Probably the armor break stuff would all go away in order to support that. And that would represent a pretty substantial damage loss. And all you would really get out of it is block chance, where we don't really need block chance. Like, the Warrior's Chin does a great job of blocking attacks with all the armor that we have built up. Quite a lot for the vast majority of hits. And then we are getting a massive amount of armor contributing to elemental damage. Over 250% for fire and lightning, and 200% for cold. Still pretty good. The other downside is that all of the life that you gain from strength is halved, so by adding another 326 strength, you wouldn't be gaining 700 something life, you would be gaining 300 something life, and you'd also be losing the, 195 strength, or 195 life that you get out of the strength that you have right now. So the point here is that you would basically be not quite breaking even, but you really wouldn't be gaining much in the way of life. So ultimately, the two things that really kill this character are damage over time effects, and there's a particular Abyss ground effect that turns off life regen of all sorts, life flask, everything else, and that's really, really irritating. And that doesn't get solved by Giant's Blood at all. So you can use Giant's Blood. It's kind of a lot of investment, and it really just doesn't seem all that worth it. All right, third question is the weapon swap, all these green lines and red lines. And previously, the use for that was pathing over here with the offhand weapon setup and taking light on your feet and momentum, and that is something you could still do on a low budget. But that's not really necessary. Something that we got a suggestion on after our last video was using a From Nothing with passives in the radius of Volpact can be allocated without being connected to your tree. And so that allows you to just take light on your feet and momentum in both weapon setups, and then now you're just fast all the time. Like, all the time. Yeah, this is basically just a main hand setup, and then if you want to swap to the offhand, you can, but it's really not necessary. Just something you could do while you're like walking through packs if you want to block some attacks with your one-hander and shield. It's an option. Probably not going to make much use of it, to be honest. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the tree, and we'll start with the Ascendancy because we got some changes here. As you can see, we're still taking Hulking Form. Hulking Form's awesome, right? It makes every single one of the small passives around the tree. Not the travel nodes, but all the small ones that are like, you know, this gives 12% to increased attack damage. Now it's 18%. Just everything is 50% stronger. It's so good. Then for the other 2 points, what we're going with here are Earthbreaker and Ancestral Empowerment. And the reason for this is that each of these bonuses is somewhere in the range of 20 to 30% more damage. There's kind of a lot going on here, so let's just kind of break it down. Earthbreaker makes it so that all of your slam skills have a 20% increased chance to have aftershocks. Aftershocks, just to demonstrate here, are these extra explosions that go off after a second. You know, you do a slam, and then it refires about a second later. And it does the full damage. So aftershocks effectively are a double damage modifier. So because of the way that Stampede's support gives you a chance to cause an aftershock as well, you can get a 100% chance to have an aftershock on your Stampede, which basically just means Stampede does double damage. That's insanely good. And you also get a little bit of area out of this, which is like, not bad. Area is always good. So this is obviously a big damage increase. You're able to get some other aftershock chance out of Split the Earth in this small passive here, as well as Behemoth, this small passive here. It puts you around 102% chance to have an aftershock on your Stampede when you're using this support, Aftershock rank 2, which gives you 35% chance, and then you can throw that onto pretty much all the rest of your skills except for Forge Hammer. Because with Forge Hammer, it only works with the initial explosion. Not great, but for all the rest of them, you throw it on there, and then they're all in the upper 80% chance to have an Aftershock. This is a huge damage increase, but it doesn't stop there. You can also take Ancestral Empowerment, and that makes it so that every second slam is ancestrally boosted, and that's where we get those fun green crystals. And this means you can put Fist of War rank 3 onto all of your skills, and now that ancestral boost is going to have double effect, so instead of 30% more damage and 25% increased area of effect, it's 60 and 50. And it's going to work on every other slam. But it actually works in kind of a nice way, where if you have one that's queued up from Fist of War actually cooling down, and then you have one that'll be triggered from your second slam, the second slam won't eat that one that's queued up from time. You can even see it like lighting up here in the window, you know, that blue overlay on the skill. You can see it lighting up. Like, there you go. That's back-to-back empowered slams because of the way that worked out. Now 3 in a row empowered slams. Kind of nice, right? So it's a very, very good bonus, and this branch basically gives you around 50% more damage, and then there's a lot of other stuff you can lay over the top of that, and that's how we've gotten basically double damage from where we were last time around. Now the issue is, of course, we're giving up Mysterious Lineage, which is 15% more life, and Stone Skin, which is quite a lot of armor with the chest armor we have here. This is like 9,000 armor when fully buffed. It's quite a lot, so we've had to make some adjustments elsewhere in the tree to compensate for that. And the main spots that we've gone after that are in taking heavy armor, which as long as you're wearing all strength items, this is going to wind up being a large amount of flat armor. As you can see, it's it's counting as 1800 armor, which is quite a substantial amount. And that's because it adds those strength requirements as flat armor that then gets scaled up by all of the percent armor bonuses throughout the tree. And then there's also Blade Catcher. This is a really powerful node. One of the biggest weaknesses for armor is crits. Being hit for a much larger amount of damage means that your armor is less effective. Generally speaking, the crit bonus that monsters gets like 130%, and this just completely overpowers that. This actually makes it so that crits become less dangerous than regular hits. So this is a must-have node. Absolutely would recommend every single armor stacking character run this node. Only about 38% of Titans, according to PoE Ninja, are running this, and it's just like a criminal malfeasance of defensive justice. People need to run this node. Everyone should be running it. If you're running armor, if you're not, then obviously it's worthless. Another big source of damage here in the tree is this Heart of the Well diamond. This is a new unique that comes from the Abyss mechanic. You kill a rogue exile on an Abyss. Sometimes they'll drop this once they revive as a Lich. They come with all availed mods. You can unveil them. Maybe you can get lucky with some pretty good mods like this one. Maybe not, but like there are a lot of them that are shockingly underpriced with pretty good mod combinations. All right, now let's talk about support gems. We've already kind of mentioned Fist of War support, still running rapid attacks and Aftershock, obviously. But Crater's gone, Branching Fissures are gone from Stampede, and that's because we've brought in Momentum, which gives you 40% more damage if you've traveled at least 2 meters, which you do in the first like half of a second. It's a little difficult to see, but there's kind of a green glow, like a green wisp thing that snaps into your character. You can kind of see it pulling in about halfway through the charge. So this is up most of the time. It's 40% more damage. It seems to apply to the Aftershock as well, so it's just a massive damage increase, and it works on the vast majority of Stampedes. As long as you're not getting like stuck on a wall, it's working. So most of the time, 40% more damage. That's about as good as you could possibly get from any support. And then we're using Holy Descent, and that makes it so that when you land, you drop this Holy Ground on the ground, right? And for this character, we're going from 81 life per second to 229. It's 5% of your life per second. It also gives you 50% reduced effective curses. That stacks with other bonuses like reduced slowing potency of skills and stuff, like bonuses like from down here, this unyielding section. So if you get like Temp Chains, these get reduced. What are these? Cut the Temp Chains down from like 30% slow down to like 25 or something, and then the Consecrated Ground cuts that down another 50%, so it goes down to like 12. Obviously, it's better to just not get cursed in the first place, but sometimes you do, and this helps a lot. It also helps with Sustain, kind of compensates for the loss of those 2 defensive ascendancy bonuses to have this constant 5% life per second. Then on Forge Hammer, we're sticking with mostly the same stuff other than Fist of War rank 3 instead of rank 2, since we're taking advantage of that. And then we're still using Fire Attunement, Elemental Armament, and Branching Fissures, so we can get all that cool stuff. But we've switched over to Rakiata's Flow instead of Fire Pin rank 2, and the reason for that is it is a huge damage increase. Is it necessary? No, but it is a humongous damage increase on bosses to make them go from whatever fire as they have, 50, 75%, down to 0 with Fire Pin rank 2. That's pretty good. Turning that into 50, 70% increased fire damage taken is awesome. So this is part of why the build is really shredding bosses. You throw that hammer down, you yell at it, and then you stomp all over it, and the bosses just melt. And so after Forge Hammer, most of the skills have stayed the same. Hammer of the Gods is the same, just leveled it up. Sunder seems to be the same. Memory serves, it's the same. Heft, Branching Fissures, you know, that all works the same as it did before. Leap Slam, we've played around with a little bit more, just kind of using it to stun, but really Stampede is just so much better at stunning in conjunction with Forge Hammer that the only real use for Leap Slam is just simply trying to get across gaps, which it is inconsistent at best at doing, as you can see. There we go, finally. One other little thing you can do further down in the tree is to throw Uhtred's Exodus onto Overwhelming Presence. You don't have any other supports affecting it. That'll give you just a tiny bit more reduction of elemental ailment threshold and stun threshold on enemies. It'll help with building up stun just a little bit faster. Not a huge deal, but something you can do for pretty cheap. All right, so that's the tree, that's skills. Now let's talk a little bit about gear. So as usual, you want as big and heavy of a physical damage weapon as you can go with. All right, now let's move over to the amulet. This is something you're looking for, this +3 level of all melee skills, and then pretty much all the rest of the stats that you want on the amulet are just gonna be defensive, life, resistances, armor, that kind of thing. But +3 level of skills adds a ton of damage, as you can see here. Like just looking at the damage values on this, 69,000 on Forge Hammer, drops down to 49,000 without the amulet. So yeah, it's a pretty big difference in damage scaling. It does also contribute to a lot of increased life cost. Like the cost of Hammer of the Gods is 333 without it and 271 with it. So, you know, that is maybe the one downside. Life cost goes up, but the damage increase is so massive that you absolutely do want to have +3 level of all melee skills on your neck. And we've had some really good tutorials from some of our community members in the Discord, in the PoE2 builds channel, talking about exactly how to make this kind of an amulet. You can make some. We've made some that sold for like quite a lot, so that's been just really helpful to have all of these great people providing this this useful information for the rest of the community. As for gloves, you can get +2 level of skills. Here are some that we bought. The defensives on these are just okay. The fact that they're hybrid armor evasion is really not great. That's ultimately why they're not equipped on this character, just going for more armor, more defensive stats, but you could use that as well. You could see that the damage goes up even higher, like quite a lot higher here with that equipped. You know, it's a pretty significant damage increase. Yeah. But then, of course, the mana costs or life costs in this case go up even further. You know, we're talking about 384 as opposed to 333. So it's an option that you could do as well if you want to get your damage even higher, get more level of skills out of your gloves. Similarly, you can get just like flat fizz to attacks out of your rings or fire damage to attacks out of your rings. The same goes with glove prefixes, but rings and gloves getting flat fizz, flat fire are very valuable for adding more damage. Then as for helm, belt, and boots, if you're not running a constricting command setup, then like these are all just really good defensive slots. These are where you're going to get a lot of armor, a lot of life, a lot of resistances, and a lot of that armor applies to elemental damage stat that is really valuable. I mean, that is the reason why we're able to get like 66,000 armor applying to fire and lightning damage without buffs, right? This goes up by 40% thanks to overwhelming, what is it called? Scavenge plating, rather. So yeah, we're gonna get that up into the like 90k range for fire and lightning, and maybe like 70,000, 80,000 for cold damage, which is pretty tanky. So that is a stat you want as much of as you can get. The same goes with armor. Like the more of it you have, the better all of it becomes. So that's kind of setting up defenses, and we're doing a lot of defensive gearing to compensate for the fact that our ascendancy is just like offense. All right, then let's wrap up with life flasks and charms. So Oros Resolve is a really valuable life flask. It's like a good investment to kind of go after. It is something that comes from Olroth, the pinnacle boss of Expedition. And it is all instant. It is instant healing, and it also over shields you, or shields you for any over healing. So you can get like this very large guard. It is expensive, you know, it's not a cheap piece, but that's why it is kind of an investment piece. It's something that you can bounce around to all of your characters for the rest of the league. You know, that's probably going to be the plan over here. Ultimately, is this Oros Resolve is probably going to be bouncing around to every other character that we play for the rest of the league. And then there's For Utopia. This is just a really good, unique charm. It makes it so that when you get stunned, you defend with 200% of armor, and usually you only get stunned when you're getting jacked up. So that's exactly when you need a lot of armor. You are getting hit real hard, you're getting stunned, and now you count as double armor. So you go from getting like whatever, 25, 30,000 armor worth of damage reduction against all the attacks that are hitting you and stunning you to 55, 60,000 armor. You're going to massively reduce the amount of damage you take over the next several seconds. This is a massively underrated defensive bonus for any build that is stacking armor in any capacity. It's really strong. And cheap too. This is very cheap. Let's just double check here. 20 exalts. Yeah, for how much defensive value it provides, how many times it will get you out of sticky situations, that is a very small price to pay. All right, that's it. Warrior remains incredibly good. It's still tanky. It destroys bosses and it clears maps very well. It has been an incredible league starter, the best one of the 3 leagues of PoE 2 thus far. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord and become part of our community. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us so we can keep making more PoE content, become a channel member or come boost our Discord. Thanks for watching. Bye.